Gentlemen, welcome to Muskrat Farm.
After an absolutely insane ending to last week's episode, this week we arrive at Muskrat Farm. But before we get there, the episode began by shedding some light on how Hannibal and Will went from, let's call it, working out some personal issues as Hannibal was sawing into Will's head, to then all of a sudden we cut away to Muskrat Farm as we see Hannibal and Will strung upside down and at the mercy of Mason Verger. Bedelia hinted last week where the police could find Hannibal, and the police in question had already been bought by Mason. And as it happened, it played out just like we thought. The police rushed to the scene, burst down the door, and captured Hannibal and Will. But there was still the question of Jack. There was no price on his head. So instead, the corrupt police officers decided they thought that opening Jack up, leaving him as the monster of Florence's final victim, would be the perfect alibi for letting Hannibal slip through their fingers. So what was to happen? Jack was at the mercy of the corrupt Florentine police, and Hannibal and Will were at the mercy of Mason Verger. Could Jack, Will or Hannibal find an escape route in the difficult situations that they all find themselves in? And in particular for Hannibal and Will, if they could find an escape, would one of them help the other one out? Or would they decide to leave the other man behind? Welcome to the top 5 moments of the episode, followed by the overall verdict.
Open him the way Lecter opened the other one. Open him all the way. Arrivederci.
Just as Jack was about to be opened up by the 2 remaining police who were ordered to kill Jack and leave him behind as another victim, the police were struck down by 2 sudden sniper shots. It was Chio who came to the rescue, and after entering the room and agreeing to take the needles out of Jack's body, Jack told Chio exactly where the police intended to take Hannibal and Will, and it was all the way back to Baltimore in the US.
Where?
Muskrat Farm. The Verger estate near the Susquehanna River in northern Maryland.
I'm committed to enjoying every bite of you.
You've thought of everything.
As Mason gathered his 2 esteemed guests for dinner, he explained to them both exactly what he intended to do with them, eating Hannibal piece by piece, savouring every moment. But he'd be doing all of this using Will's face.
No pajama party for you, Mr. Graham. We're gonna feed you to the pigs as soon as Cordella's removed your face.
I promise. And I always keep my promises, Lana.
Menacing, eh? After being tied up with little to no chance of breaking free, Hannibal receives 2 special visitors. He promises Alana that he will save Will when she cuts one arm free. Alana adheres to Hannibal's wishes and leaves him with the only thing he needs, a pocket knife. Coming good on his promise, Mason awakes after being sedated to find the face that he wears was not the one he was hoping for. And after Alana and Margot confront Mason, they reveal to him that they now have everything they need to allow Margot to erase Mason once and for all.
Should we talk about teacups and time and the rules of disorder?
The teacup's broken. It's never going to gather itself back together again.
After saving Will and carrying him back to his home, Will tells Hannibal that he wants nothing to do with him anymore. He doesn't want to see him, doesn't want to even know where he is. Hannibal leaves with Will never expecting to see him again. But Hannibal has other plans. As Hannibal appears out of the darkness, surrendering himself to Jack Crawford, he delivers one final message aimed directly at Will.
I want you to know exactly where I am, and where you can always find me.
My overall verdict for the Hannibal Season 3 mid-season finale is a full 10 out of 10. The first half of Season 3 wrapped up its story arc in typical Hannibal fashion. Pulsating throughout and thrilling to the end, all of the plots ended up tying perfectly together. Brian Fuller has done a wonderful job at merging parts of the Hannibal Rising and Hannibal novels together, incorporating them both into creating his own vision. The cast have always been absolutely tremendous since day one, but even some of the supporting cast in this episode were even more exceptional than normal. Margot in particular was one. The look of shock that surged through her face was apparent to see after Mason admitted the shocking truth that a surrogate baby of hers had been born and was being kept on the farm. That shock was elevated even more and was passed on to Alana when they both walked in on what must have been one of the most disturbing and creepiest sets ever in existence. There's creepy and man, this is next level creepy. And whilst all that was going on, the scene was being mirrored alongside Cordell, who was intending to remove Will's face. Honestly, I must have been sat staring at the screen in utter shock. It was horrifying. For a moment when you saw face being peeled away from skin, I was beginning to think, what hasn't Will Graham, toughest man alive, not gone through yet? He's been beaten, stabbed, shot, mentally drained and tortured, had an ear stuffed down his throat, been accused and thrown behind bars for someone else's crime, so hey, what's having his face removed gonna do? But after a moment, thankfully, my nerves began to cool. It was obvious in the way that the scene was structured, it was trying to make you believe that Will was indeed having his face removed. But as soon as I saw Mason reaching for that mirror, I knew the face that would be looking back at him wouldn't be the one he was expecting. It's a shame that we didn't get to see Cordell meet his grisly end. He was almost as sadistic as Mason. But in truth, after seeing the results of what happened to him, it was probably for the best. Now, to someone who in truth deserved to meet his end a lot more than most, was Mason. Mason's story came to a fitting conclusion as Margot and Alana held him to the mercy of his own eel, which went straight down his throat. Honestly, I've said this before, but having an actor change midway through a story seems to never go well. Joe Anderson is a flying exception to that rule. Of course it helps that the actor change happened at the appropriate time when he had his face cut off, but Joe Anderson absolutely nailed it. I bought every moment at him as Mason Verger, never really telling the difference. And congratulations to him for that. And thank you for helping complete the story of one of TV's most sadistic and evil villains. Back to the main cast. Jeez, at one point Mads Mikkelsen was so menacing he sent shivers down my spine. He's always had a massive presence whenever on screen, but when he was making another promise to Alana, damn, you would not bet against him. I have a feeling if we ever get to see Brian Fuller's full vision play out, Hannibal's original promise to Alana may very well be fulfilled. Now, as epic as Hannibal's escape was, the concluding scene was a moment that the story had been building up to ever since episode 1. After saving Will and carrying him back to his home, Will wanted nothing to do with Hannibal anymore. The beautiful soundtrack from Mizumono echoed in the background of Hannibal and Will's final conversation. Will told him he would never miss him, never look for him, never want to know what he does or where he is, and he wanted to never think about him again. So for Hannibal to turn around and turn himself in so Will would know where Hannibal was at all times really was a great twist. And it was kind of moving in a way as well, since it felt like Hannibal was surrendering for Will. I mean, let's face it, I think we all knew and expected Hannibal to get caught this episode, knowing that we're heading into the Red Dragon next week, but I didn't expect him to get caught like that. In truth, throughout the whole episode there were some notably great moments between the pair that stemmed further than the emotional parting at the end. My personal favourite was the smile that Hannibal gave Will at the dinner table after he bit into Cordell's face. It was filled with so much pride and joy at the savagery he just witnessed. And then of course we can't forget the moment Hannibal carried Will to safety, reminiscent of the scene from the Hannibal film as he carried Clarice away in his arms. Now I must admit, Chio really did intrigue me this week. Once the police were set about opening Jack up the way Hannibal intended to open up Will, I thought Jack that maybe would get a rush of adrenaline and fight himself out of it. I didn't expect Chio to snipe the two corrupt police down. And her persistence of being protective of Hannibal led her across the globe and also to Muskrat Farm, where she aided in Hannibal and Will's escape. She got the closure she was looking for though. In a conversation with Hannibal, Hannibal revealed what truly happened to Misha. Hannibal admitted that he did eat his own sister, but that he did not kill her. And after that, Chio vanished into the darkness. And who knows where she will go next, or if she will ever crop up again. So there we are. The prequel material before the Red Dragon has officially been complete. Next week, Richard Armitage is set to make his much anticipated debut as Francis Dollarhide. And I think we all know that when you want to catch a killer, there's only one man that Will and Jack will look to. Thank you very much for watching. Please leave a like, comment and subscribe if you enjoyed the review. Continue the support for Hannibal in any way you can, and I'll see you next week.
I want you to know exactly where I am, where you can almost find me.